Welcome to Unite Now, where we bring unity to you, wherever you are.
Welcome everyone to this Up to Speed with Timeline session. For today, in this session, uh, we are your instructors. I'm your co-instructor, Daniel Sanchez. I'm an indie developer. I'm trying to I'm sorry to create games from scratch. So if you're indie, you know what I'm talking about. Um, as you can notice, my native language is in English, so my apologies if you understand something I said in the wrong way. And for today, your main instructor is Nicolas, so I let him to introduce himself for now.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicolas. I'm a Unity senior developer at Product Madness London, but I am actually also an English speaker. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm eager to share this session with you guys.
Cool. Oh, there's a couple of teachers right here in the chat, so that's awesome. Please encourage your students to use more Unity and and use this stuff, these skills in all kind of games. For today, we have three amazing moderators. Sorry if I say something wrong. We have Ethan, Michael, and James. They will help you to anything you may need. Meanwhile, you follow through the session. So they will give you the links you need in the chat. Please be attentive to the chat. And everything you may need, they will help you to follow through this session. Let me see. Oh, for today we have some goals, right? In this session, you learn the basic concepts of timeline and control several objects to create a cutscene. That's the main goals. This is an example of what you're gonna do today. So as you can see, there's a couple of transitions. There's audio, there's multiple cameras, so they will help you to improve your games or your projects. Anything you may need, this is your session for today. So please, anything you may need, please, if you have any question, I encourage you to drop all those questions to the Q&A tab. Maybe at this moment, if you're using like an iPad or mobile device, I don't know where it is right now, but this tab, the Q&A tab, will there is the section where you must drop everything you may need from this session. Please maintain this I forgot the word, organize, as most organized as you can, please. And thank you all for being here. For today, we have some ground rules. If you're new into Unity, please don't worry. You can either catch up later on the recorded session. You can just watch this session and practice later. And if you're like more confident in Unity, you have more skills in the software, so you can download the project, follow along, and right, see, follow this session as we tell you. Please, the Q&A questions, be respectful and constructive. And for today, we have a project for you. So if you have in the chat the link for the project, James had shared us the link. I'm sorry, let me explain that later. There's a couple of questions in the chat right now, but for now we have Unity 2019.3. This is the version of Unity we are using for today. And the Unity timeline session assets, there's in this link. So James has already shared us with us. And yeah, that's all. This session will be recorded. So for today or for these sessions, you have three icons in the top of the screen. Watch. So you have to pay attention to what we are doing in the screen. When you have see this little green hand, it means to do. It's your time to practice all we watch before and explore. This is an icon you maybe will not see it for today, but we will encourage you to do something more in this session, right? So this is the watch. So for today, you will need these assets. You have the link in the chat already. Extract the Unity project. This is a Unity project. It's not a package. So you have to extract the projects from your journals folder. Open Unity Hub and please select this project in Unity Hub. Then click the Add button and look for the project folder. Select it and open the project, right? This is your turn. You have 5 minutes. I will leave you with Nicolas. That's your main instructor for today. So anything you may need, you have any problem, any warning, you can drop all your questions to the Q&A tab. So thank you, everyone. This is
Guys,
your moment to shine.
thank you, Daniel. Please pay attention because in the link there are two assets. Please download the one that says Timeline Assets June 25 because that's a project. The other one is a package. So this is a project already with everything already configured. Please use that one. Well, we will take 5 minutes. Let's do this until 14, and then we'll continue.
You're using 2019.4, it's pretty fine. If you're using 19.3.4, you have the same method to do this session. So it's right. Don't worry. Yes, for those who are asking about the share link about record the session, yeah, I will provide you in later in the chat. So don't worry. And about the folders, yes, please unzip the folders and extract the project folder. That's what you need to open in Unity Hub.
Yeah, remember, if you are not familiar with opening projects in Unity and using Unity Hub, let me show you a little demonstration here on the screen. This is the files already uncompressed. So once you download the timeline project and uncompress it, you can go to Unity Hub, click the Add button, find the folder, the entire folder. There's no solution file or project file. It's just the folder. Usually, it's the folder that contains the assets or the library. So select timeline project in my case, open, and that will open the project in Unity Hub. And finally, you can click timeline project. That's are the steps. And again, remember, download the one that says June 25, not the other one. Also, we are going to continue in 2 minutes. If you are stuck or if you needed help, please ask in the Q&A channel. We are here to help.
There's a question about a beginner game developer. should study before start developing his first game? Well, if you have the like, I don't know how to say that, but if you have the like the emotion, I think, to make games, you should definitely start right now. Everything you may learn, they will help you. These sessions are the perfect time for learn, because you're doing something meanwhile you're watching. So this is the perfect time. Unity has the Unity Learn site. It's free for now, so you may watch all their stuff there. And yeah, there's thousands of tutorials in internet, but I really encourage you to see the Unity Learn site. It's perfect if you're a beginner in this journey with Unity and game development.
And about Kai question about why he did so the assets ping in the other package. Remember, that's not the package we are going to use. But anyway, if you encounter pink materials, that's mostly because that package was created for the built-in Unity render engine and not URP. If you created an URP project, is basically that package is not compatible with URP projects. That's why you see ping. Most of the time, Unity shows you ping is an error in the material. Great, guys. We are on time. We will start now that we have the project open. Actually, I don't have the project open, so I will open it. Great. So in the meanwhile, before starting discussing timeline, I want to answer first the typical question about when to use timeline, when to use animation, animators, what's the difference? So first, let's define the animator and animation system in Unity. Animations are mostly modular little clips about the motion of a certain object. Maybe, I don't know, the player shooting, the player walking, jumping, whatever, crouching. Those little clips modular that we can combine them with the animator. The animator is a system of Unity that allows you to create logic to pick one animation on another based on certain conditions. I want to run if the player is running, actually running, if he's pressing the W key, or jumping if the vertical velocity of the rigid body is positive or negative, falling. You create a set of conditions that define which animation should execute at a given time. So I saw certain kind of cutscenes done with the animator trying to combine and sequence animations, but if you ever try to create a cutscene using animators, you know that is a problem. It's super difficult to synchronize and etc. So the animator system is basically a way to play animations in a dynamic way, just to switch animations based on conditions, and that's generally attached to gameplay, not actual static behavior like the one you encounter in cutscenes. So, what's timeline then? Timeline is a way to direct, to control what several objects do at different moments. It sounds similar to animations actually, but it's not the same. And timeline, or the director actually, allows you to say, okay, in this moment I want an object to appear, and in this moment I want a sound to appear, in this, or play actually. In this moment I want a certain animation to play, because actually timeline will play animation clips at given times. Maybe you want, and in this specific moment I want to execute some function, some custom script. So basically timeline is a way to sequence actions, to control several objects and what they do at different moments of time. So it's actually more powerful than animations, because animations just controls, interpolates states of the object, interpolates between two positions or two rotations. This allows you to do way more stuff. So basically, we are going to sequence actions with timeline from, again, playing sounds, playing scripts, playing animations in a fixed way. So let's practice all these concepts doing a simple cutscene here. So in order to start creating a cutscene with timeline, we need two things. First, we need the timeline asset. The timeline asset is, as the name suggests, a file that contains the sequence of actions. It's this file we are going to edit with the timeline editor. It's basically like an animation clip, the animation clip version of timeline. And then we need the playable director, that is a component that you will attach to a game object that will play, will reproduce the timeline. So it's basically like the animator of the animator controller. So again, we need the playable director component that will play whatever is set in the timeline asset. So our main goal is to create a timeline asset and edit it with the timeline editor. So the steps to do this are the following. Please remember that right now, we here at the top right part of the screen, you can see this stop sign. If you see this, just pay attention. You will have time later with the green icon later. So just for now, please pay attention. So what are the steps? I'm going to create an empty object called director. It's my preference. I prefer call it director. Actually, I see in the image that says timeline. I prefer director actually. Then we are going to open Windows sequencing timeline. This is the path to the timeline editor. Or you can just actually double click the timeline asset if you have any. And then we are going to use the create button that will set up everything for us. We'll create the timeline asset and we'll add automatically the playable component here, the director component. They configured to direct this to play actually this timeline asset. So let me show you. You will find that in the project files, there are several scenes, advanced, finish, and starter scene. We are going to use starter. The other ones are just examples of how this is going to end. Actually, finish is the final version of what we are going to do today. Advanced is just, as the name suggests, an advanced version of the same with more features. But let's start with the starter scene. Double click starter scene. And now I will create an empty object, game object, create empty. I will call it, just for clarification, director. No components so far, just the empty object. The window, sequencing, timeline. Again, window, sequencing, timeline. And here you will find this window that I will put here. And now with the director object selected, I will click on create. Unity will prompt me to say, okay, how do you want to call this asset? I will call it, I know, test timeline. Save. Here you can see the asset created. That's the first step. We just prepare everything to create our timeline. So now you just turn. Let's take 5 minutes for you to do the same. Create an empty object, open the timeline editor, and hit the create button to have everything prepared. So again, let's take 5 minutes. Let's do this until 24 in my clock at least, and then we will continue. Please, any questions in the Q&A channel?
Oh, there's a pretty cool question about the timeline. As you can see in the animation windows, you can use the time, the seconds, or the frames. The anonymous attendee is asking about if he can have like a frame, like a per frame precision. It's a really cool question about the timeline. It's called the timeline because you use the time for those for the management of the objects. I don't know if you can show something in the screen about this little timeline, the time axis, the time axis. Upper frame values for player invulnerability. It will be used for something like that.
Great. About the lock here is just a way. There are several people asking what about this lock does. This is a way to prevent the timeline to lose the current asset to edit, because as an example, let me show you. If right now I have director selected and the timeline is showing this, but if I click other objects, you can see that I'm losing the access to the original director I create. So if you click director, create the asset, and then click the lock button, you can see that now I can click several other objects and this will stick to the original director. Just as a way to stick the timeline window to this specific director, just to prevent losing access to it. Well, great. Exactly, Sean. Let me see if there's another question out there. Okay. So, guys, let's continue. So, how we can start doing something with timeline? Well, in timeline is basically a big collection of tracks. Each track is in charge of saying specific objects to do specific actions. Basically, we have different kind of tracks that can do different stuff to a specific object. So, if, as an example, we want two objects, we want the same object to do two different actions, maybe the same object to play a sound and the same object to play an animation, we need two tracks. Each track will be for different actions, animation and sound, and they can control the same object if they want to. Or, again, if we want one object to play a sound and another object to play an animation, we want two tracks, each one controlling different objects. So what we are going to do today is play with the most common kind of tracks we have out there. Being the first one, the activation track, that, as the name suggests, control the time frame where a specific object is active. In our case, we are going to use this to create a swap between two different cameras that are already in our scene. You might be wondering, hey, what about Cinemachine? Yes, you are right. You can use Cinemachine in timeline to control cameras, but today we are going to focus just on timeline. So again, to change between cameras, we are going just to activate and deactivate the cameras. But again, these tracks, the activation tracks, can be used to activate whatever object you want, not just cameras. So how we can create an activation track? Remember, please, the stop sign here. We going to use the plus button, select an activation track, then drag the activation track, the object to control its activation to the activation track, and then we are going to create clips to say, okay, from here to here, we are going to make an object active. So let me show you that. So first, in our scene, we have two cameras, this one and this one. You can see that the second one is deactivated, it's here, and the first one is here. We want to change them in a given moment of time. How? Great. There are actually several ways to do this, but the most easy in some sort of way is right-click in this like empty area, not here, actually there also, but mostly in this great area here, and select activation track. Now we have an activation track with an activation clip. This clip that I can drag, and if I drag the borders, I can change its size, will determine from which moment to which moment the object will be activated. Which object? The one here. In the header of the track, you can drag the object you want to control. So in this case, I want to say, okay, I want from this amount of frames, I want the animation to be the camera one object, this one to be active. So I want to drag the camera to the header of the track here. And now you can see that this is controlling this object, camera. And we will say, okay, from, I don't know, maybe from here to here, we want the camera one to be active. And if you want to also control camera two, remember, one track can control only one object. So we can right-click and select activation track again to create another activation track. Say that this second object will be active from here to here. And in this case, I will drag camera 2. So 2 objects, 2 tracks. If you want to check this to see how this works, you can do it both in editor and in runtime. If you want to do it in editor, select the game tab here. And you can play and see how this changes. Remember that in this case, because we are animating cameras, the only way to see the camera movement is from the game view. So again, right-click, activation track, drag the object you want to control, and modify this clip. Actually, if you want to activate the camera 1 again, after the camera 2, you can right-click, not here as before, but here in the track, and create and use the add activation clip to generate another clip. So you can activate, deactivate, activate, deactivate the same object several times. You can see how starts camera 1, camera 2, then gets back to camera 1. We are not using this right now, but just a nice feature to have. And with delete, you can delete this. So given that, I want now you to do the same. Let's take 10 minutes, actually a little less, not that much. 7 minutes, let's take. Let's do this until 36. And do the same. Create a track, drag the cameras, and make sure the cameras change in a given moment of time. So let's start again until 2036, and then we will continue. About anonymous question, does timeline supports looping? Yes. You can go to director. In the director, you have the grab mode configuration that will say none. None basically will left everything. It basically stops reproducing the timeline. Hold that will like keep playing forever the last frame. Those two are similar, but has its differences, especially with custom scripts. But what you are looking for is loop, basically. I leave you again with the instructions. About buyback question, what happens if the active bar overlaps? Basically, I mean, if you overlaps two active clips in the same track, is the same of having a giant single clip track, actually. Clip, actually. Clip. If two of different objects overlaps, that is actually nice. In my case, if I do that, if I do something like this, I will have the two cameras active at the same time. Because of the camera system, it has a priority, like a northern, this configuration here, the depth configuration, you will see only one of the cameras, but you can see that the two cameras are active. That behavior can change according to the object, but basically the two objects will be active. About Lance's question, what is the initial time in Instructor? That's easy. It's basically in which moment you want to start. Maybe you don't want to start right in the beginning, so you want to start maybe in the middle of the clip. You can set that here. You can actually also control that via scripting if you want to, but basically that's the meaning of initial time. About Laurent questions, can be activated on collision trigger? Yes, you can. Like when you play a sound or you play an animation, you can do get component of the playable director component. This one here. Remember that this is called playable director, and just use the play stop API of that script. No problem. About Sean questions, can you jump to different points of the timeline using markers? Yes, we don't have at least at the best of my knowledge, we don't have a way to mark specific moments, but you can certainly like fast forward animation to a specific frame using actually scripts, like setting the frame you want the animation to jump. But this is done via script. Leandro, no, we are going to just play with two cameras. Sorry, yes, the slide is wrong. I'm referring basically to camera 1 and camera 2. Basically do the same as I did before. Sorry, the slide is wrong. About Lance questions, what is the update method? This one here. Basically is in which moment the timeline will tick. And with this I mean how frequent the timeline will sample the specific moment you want to execute. Game time is basically in sync with the update method. So one update method, one refresh, like an update of the timeline. But if you have used time scale, but you don't want this timeline to be affected of that one, you can use unscale. DSP clock is basically an advanced configuration just for audio and specific advanced audio plugins. So you are not going to use that, but it's basically to sync the timeline precisely with audio. And manual is a way to say, okay, you will be in control of when you want the timeline to execute its update. So basically you can control when the update of the timeline will execute with that one. Okay, guys, 2 more minutes. If you are stuck, if you need help, please ask in the Q&A and I can help.
There's questions from Alvaro about what happens if two clips overlap. about some cameras.
Okay, about Alvaro's question. Remember that you can have two cameras active. I mean, the activation track doesn't care about which object you're activating. It will activate them. If you have two cameras active, it will activate. In that case, the responsibility of handle this situation is basically the cameras. Okay, you have two cameras. What are you going to do? I don't know. The camera is the responsible here. So in this case, the cameras have this depth setting. If you select the camera and go to the camera component, you have this depth configuration that will basically pick the one to render on top of each other. So basically, if I have maybe camera 2 with depth 2 and camera 1 with depth 1, I don't remember if it was the lowest or the highest value, but if I remember properly, it was the highest value. So basically, camera 2 will render over camera 1. But the 2 will be rendering actually. Not super performant, but there are actual scenarios where you want to do that advanced. So we are not worried about those. So let me check the other question. So it's like FPS in film editing. I don't know if that's about FPS. I think you are referring to the frames per second. Not sure, to be honest, the question about that. Yes, I mean, Lance, if you have two, okay, yes, game time, yes, basically FPS, yeah, you are right. About your other questions, if you have two tracks, if you are the lowest track, then mask all the other tracks. I don't know what you're referring with mask, actually, but if you have, I mean, all tracks will be playing, and if two tracks will execute, like, will affect the same object different ways, that's undefined behavior, actually, but that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't, maybe, you shouldn't create two, I don't know, play sounds that affects the same object with different clips, so that's actually not recommended. Well, guys, let's continue. So that's activation tracks. Let's explore other tracks. This session, as you can see, is more about you doing. So let's keep practicing with the other stuff. We have our little change between two cameras. And in this case, I want also to play different sounds, like different musics in different moments. Basically, when camera 1 is active, I want one music track, and when camera 2 is active, the other. For that, we have specific tracks that are audio tracks that are in charge of playing audio clips on audio sources. Remember that audio source is the component that is in charge of playing sounds. So how you can do that? Basically the same way. Create an audio track this time, drag an audio source to the header of the track. Remember that in this case, the object you are dragging needs to have an audio source component. If not, it will prompt you to add it, so it's basically the same. And now, you usually in the audio source, you drag clips in the audio source. In this case, it's not necessary. You just put the audio source directly in the timeline. So you can sequence one audio source to play different tracks over time. And that's actually what we are going to do. We're going to create one audio source to play two different music tracks in a way that they can overlap between them. You can see here that we are overlapping them. So let me show you this. So I will go to game object, create empty. I will call it audio or music, basically, because it's going to play music. Add component, add component, audio source, and that's all. This object will be playing audio source, which clips, the ones we specified in the timeline. So now that we have our audio source, right click in the timeline, audio track, and drag the music object we just created in the header of the timeline. And now, to specify which tracks to execute, I'm going to my audio folder and look for my two musics here. So let's say, okay, I want during the time camera 1 is active, I want this music here. I will drag it to the track. And you can see that automatically with the wheel, I can zoom out. I'm using the mouse wheel. You can see how we have a clip with the length of the entire sound, but actually we want just a specific part to play, just the beginning, and maybe not the beginning, maybe from here to here. So how you can control which part of the clip to play? You can just drag the borders of the track. As you can see that this is not changing the speed or it's not compressing the audio, it's just trimming it. So you can basically use the borders. With the wheel, I can zoom in again. You can basically use the borders to trim. So I want to play from here to, let's say, here during the first camera. Let's say to here. And if you hit play, I have muted audio. You can see how you can see basically a preview. Remember to uncheck mute audio. And I want to also change to a second track, this one here. So the same, I will drag it to the track. Again, I have the full song. I want just, again, a little part, so I will just trim it. And in this case, actually, you can see that the first track is a little longer than the camera because I want to do an fade in, fade out between the two tracks. So I can basically overlap the two clips, and you can see that automatically Unity shows this kind of interpolation or fade in, fade out image that is basically that you are fading in the two tracks. Also, I will make, you can see that here we are fading in and fading out. But if you play the sound, actually let me show you before continuing. You can see that it was fast, but the interpolation happened. And let's say we want also to this clip to fade out at the end. If you drag the border, you can see that you are trimming. But if you drag the border while pressing Command on Mac, in Windows, I think it's Shift or Control. I honestly don't remember. But in Mac, Command and drag, and you can see how the fade, you can control the fade of this track. So it basically will fade the volume. So that's basically the trick. Create an audio track, drag an object with the audio source, and drag clips in the timeline to synchronize the music. So now it's your moment. Basically do that. Create with the plus button one audio track, drag the audio source, drag the music, and synchronize them with the activation and the deactivation of the cameras. And if you want, if you have time, create another audio source just to play the wind sound, this one here. And basically you don't need to put that on timeline because this is a song we want to just put it and execute it constantly. It's just for you to realize that not everything needs to be controlled by timeline. You can have other objects doing other stuff in its own. So 5 minutes, guys. Let's do this until 47 in my clock, and then we'll continue. So as usual, if you have any question, please use the Q&A channel. Okay, I will show you again, Manny. Let me just do it all over again. We are in the situation we were before, just the activation tracks. We don't have any music, whatever. So, game object, create empty. I will create a music object. And with add component, I will add the audio source. When I did this, I go into the timeline, right click, audio track, drag the music object to the header, and then drag the clips inside the track. So I will trim them. Actually, I will drag the other one before. I drag the two of them, trim them, and then I will overlap them this way. So basically drag the clips and overlap them. And if you want to make the fade out of the last one, command and drag the right border. And I think in Windows is Shift or Control, try any of those.
There's a cool question from Paul. If you can control, you can do more fine control of mixing audio, not just fade in, fade out, but setting other levels and transitions. I think you can do that with the audio mixers building in Unity, or using a middleware is the most common option. But if you're using the audio mixers, you can control them by the same way in the director. Mm, there's a lot of questions about the audio, but we have questions about if you can loop, you can have a loop that fades in and fades out when it restarts, so it continues. I think I don't know if you're talking about the fade in and fade out like graphically. The camera makes a fade in or a fade out in black. You can you can actually have an UI object all painted black where you have controlled by the timeline director. It's a real simple way to do those fade in and fade out, but they will maybe consume a little bit of resources of the machine. So it's not the best way, but it can provide you with a fade in and fade out really quick.
Okay, and I think also about if you want to loop the same timeline, you can loop it, but you can't fade in the start and the end of the timeline. Sadly, if you want to do that, I recommend you to do this. For example, in the case of music, you want to fade in this so this one enters. You can do a not so nice trick, but one trick that is basically creating another one of the same clip and interpolating with that one in a way, it's a little tricky, but in a way that the end of this one matches this one, this specific moment matches with this specific moment. We will need some tweaking. Maybe a better way to do this will be to select this, Control C, Control B, and you can see that now this is the start. This start matches with this start, so you can drag it. Oops, you can drag it this way, so those two matches. And now do this, basically extending the original start backwards to make sure those matches. It's cheap, but it can work. Okay, guys, let's continue. In a moment, we will keep answering the questions. So we have sound, great. What else? Animations, exactly. We can also play animation tracks. Even this is an audio image, but don't worry. An animation track. How we can play animations basically is the same idea. You need an object to be animated. That object needs to have an animator, and you can drag animation clips inside. So it's basically the same idea without this, but with animators and animations. So let me show you how to do that. Let me create, in this case, actually the rover, this object here has an animator component. You see that it doesn't have controller and it doesn't need to have controller. We want to just play a random animation. It doesn't need to be in our control. So right click, animation track, drag the rover, in this case, same idea. In this case, the rover already has the animator. And in our case, I know that we have a clip here, this rover look around clip, and we can drag this clip here. In this case, the clip were already done before. So basically, again, right click, animation track. In the animation track, drag the object to be animated, in this case, the rover. And if you have clips prepared, like this one, drag it to the timeline, as we did with the audio. And you can see now that if I move the preview, you can see the look around animation of the rover. But actually, today we are not going to use these animations. This was just for you to see them and see that you can drag animations that you have maybe downloaded from the asset store or from certain FBX. But aside from this, you can actually create new animations directly inside timeline. So actually, let me just go towards that specific exact animation, exercise. So how we can record animations directly, maybe create our own animation clips in timeline? Simple, we have an animation recorder system inside that is integrated with the animation system of Unity. What we are going to do is basically use the animation system of Unity, but in a more simplified way, specialized for timeline. So how we can do that? The same way we create an animation track, drag the object to animate, but this time, instead of dragging an existing clip, we are going to create a clip using the record button. And we can start animating. Let me show you how we can do that. I will remove the clip here, just an animation track with the rover drag, and I will click the record button. So we are now we are in record mode. Whatever change we do to the rover will be saved, will be recorded in the place we have the currently our header. So let me set the initial state of the timing of the rover. Which is going to be the state of the rover in this moment. I will select the rover, and in this case, the rover has a specified position, and I want actually that position to be kept. But Unity won't record that position until I change it. So I will do a simple change. I will change the y-axis, or I can also move it like this. And you can see that now a keyframe were created here. This keyframe will highlight that we have a specific state for our rover in that moment. So now that I have the position recorded, I will actually set it to 0 again to get back to the start position. And let me put the playback header at the end, actually more or less here at this moment. And again, while we have the record mode enabled, move the rover like here. And you can see that now another keyframe were created here. So we specified that the rover will be here in this place at this moment, and then will be here at this moment. And you can see that now we have a nice animation of the rover. So basically, using the record mode, you can put the header whatever you want and move the objects whatever you want. In this case, remember just the rover or any rover child. You can basically animate also childs of the object being controlled by the track. So now we can see that. Let me show you again. Play. I will mute the audio, and the rover will play the animations. So basically, on behind, we are just using the animation window, the regular animation window of Unity. We can double click actually the track, and we can see that we are just animating with the animation window. So your turn, guys. I want you to do what I did just now, animate our rover doing the steps in the screen that were the ones I did before. So let's take 5 minutes. Let's do this until 58, and then we will wrap up the session. About Giovanni questions about changing the frame, the specific moment of the audio, instead of dragging, yes, you can. You can select the clip, and here you can, let me check. Here, yes, you have, let me remember. Yes, basically that are, now I'm not sure actually, let me check. I was pretty sure that, I mean, you can see how you can control them here with these controls here, basically start, end, and duration. So basically try to use those there. Select the clip and control this here. About buyback questions of the fade in, fade out of the cameras, that's what Daniel said before. The cameras won't fade in, fade out between themselves because it's not integrated in the timeline right now, that's functionality. But you can actually create an UI object, as an example, an image object. It's not actually, to be honest, it's more performant to create a plane with a material with alpha instead of a canvas object, but both options would work. But anyway, you have an object covering the screen, and you can animate the alpha using the recorder animation we just did. So you will be fading the alpha with an animation instead of a specific track in the timeline. Yes, Paul, I think there is a way to create a keyframe without changing something, but I mean, here in this editor, don't think so, actually. I mean, you usually don't do that way. You should just modify and create the clip. But if you want to go to an advanced mode where you can just double click. And here you can double click any time, any moment in the timeline and create the keyframes. So basically double click to enter to animation mode and then double click the tracks to add new keyframes. Actually, you can see how I am adding keyframes, and now you can see them on the timeline. About one questions, all the sub-objects will be recorded or of the rover, or a new track should be made for a sub-object? No, in this case, with a single track, you can animate an object and all its childs, because actually the animation window works like that. You can control the object and all its childs.
About poll questions, if you can apply easing curves, I think you can. There's a little icon. Exactly. You can modify the curves of the animation you just create or just record it. So it's a really simple way to do that. But for more complexity in the curves, you have to use like another script, like the math of the animation, like the math of the animation curve you're setting. You have to do that by code. But this tool, the curve tool in the record or the animation windows will help you to smooth your record animations.
And I think somebody asked before if you can control other audio aspects, not only volume. Well, I found actually here this little button here. I never saw that, but here you can see how you can control the spatial blend, the stereo pan, and the volume with these groups. So nice to know we have these extended options here. Well, guys, we are on time, so we are going to wrap up. Anyway, I'm going to stay a few minutes after the session for more questions, but let's do a little wrap up for the ones that already finished. So before finishing, I want you to I recommend you to explore other features of the system. Something interesting is that you can use the same animation, the same timeline, and apply it to different objects with bindings. Bindings is here in the director. You have these bindings where you can replace the objects that are controlled. So you can apply the same timeline in different scenes with different objects, and both will behave the same. That's a very powerful option. Then you have other kind of tracks, like control tracks, that allows you to execute other timelines, like timelines inside timelines. It's like kind of Inception thing. But basically, you can control not only play directors, but any other playable. With this, I am referring maybe also to particle systems. So basically, a control track, you can drag an object, and that object will be active during the reproduction. And if it's a time-based track, like object, like particle system, that will also control the duration of the particle on other timelines. You have signal tracks that are also very powerful. That basically is a way to create clips that will represent functions to execute. It's very similar to the animation events, those kind of little white markers that execute methods. You can create, for more advanced uses, custom track clips, but basically reproduces your own custom code during the clip. And finally, you can organize tracks in track groups in case you have many of them. So that's some features I recommend you to investigate further to improve your workflow with timelines. So, Daniel, here we were, right?
Yes, let me take the control. For now, let's do the wrap up. Please join us to the Learners Connect group. If you can check what are doing your fellow Unity users. So please use this link, Learners Connect, and post post an introduction of yourself, and if you're doing something in this session or you catch up later, please upload your progress. It will be an amazing way to improve yourself and show others what we are doing. Post questions and discuss is everything you may need. We will be there answer your questions, so don't be afraid to ask anytime. Where to reach us? For now, you can use the mail and the LinkedIn from Nicolas. If you speak Spanish, I'm making some streams uh, on Twitch about game dev and animations and Unity in general. So I encourage you to visit sometime. You can reach me at my email or my Twitter. So this is for now. Thank you everyone for being here at this session. We'll be answering some couple of questions like 10 minutes more. So if you have anything to say, anything you may ask, please do at the Q&A tab. Thank you everyone for being here. We have another sessions for this month. So well, for this month or the next month. So please stay tuned at the Unity Learns platform. It's free now, so invite your friends to to be here with us and learn everything you may can.
So thank you,
Okay.
guys. We will be keeping here to answer questions. Okay. Can I reuse timeline to different objects? Example in behaviors of warrior. I'm not sure what you're asking there. Let me see. I mean, this might be related with the bindings we mentioned before. Remember that director is playing this asset. This asset will control several objects. If you want to reuse the same asset, let's say control different objects, it's actually doable. You can select the director, drag the test timeline asset as usual, and you can see here that you have this binding. So let's put this in practice. Let me create a new scene, completely new, empty, with one object, and this object will be our rover here. So I will create an empty object, add a pliable director, drag the timeline we created previously, and here you can see that the timeline is saying, hey, right, great. You want to reproduce this playable, but this is a new thing. Which are the bindings? Which are the objects that activation track 1 and 2 control, the audio track, the animation track? Basically, which are the objects this timeline will control in this scene? So in this case, the animation, I want to be played by the cube. Then let's see that I cannot drag the cube. Why? Basically because the cube doesn't have an animator. I will just add an animator here. And now I can drag the cube. And let me unlock a relock to now use this director. And you can see how the cube applies the same. So basically, you create a playable director in the other scene or in the same scene if you want to run 2 times the same timeline, the same scene to control different objects. The idea is you can have different playable directors playing the same timeline, but binding its control to different objects. So that's basically the idea. Well, guys, if isn't there any question, I'm going to leave you, and I'm going to leave again also. So again, thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in a future session. Thank you for being here, guys.